Okay, I hope I'm audible to all the students who are attending this lecture of intermediate macroeconomics. Okay, this is the second lecture of consumption theory. In the first lecture of consumption theory, we were looking at the short-run Keynesian function, Keynesian consumption function. We had talked about the relationship between marginal propensity to consume and average propensity to consume. And we had looked at that in the short run, as income increases, average propensity to consume falls and average propensity to save rises. Okay. And in the short run, MPC is less than APC. We had also discussed about the long run consumption function, which was given by Simon Kuznets, who observed that in the long run, average propensity to consume is fairly constant and equal to MPC. Hence, the long run consumption function will be a straight line passing through the origin. Now, in this second lecture of consumption theory, we talk about the basic model of consumption behavior. Basic model, okay? So we will be looking at consumption in a two-period framework. Now, students who have studied with me the intermediate microeconomics lectures on intertemporal choice, we have done this discussion in intertemporal choice as well. Okay, so you can see on your screen, we have a single consumer who is having the utility function given by u as a function of C0, C1, C2, Ct, and the last time period is C capital T. So the lifetime utility u is a function of his real consumption C in all the time periods up to capital T. So C0, C1, C2, these are all consumption in different time periods. Consumption of the same commodity, but in different time periods. Okay, so the consumer tries to maximize his utility subject to the constraint. All of us know the constraint from the lectures on intertemporal choice. The present discounted value of consumption should exactly be equal to the present discounted value of income. So the term which you can see on the left hand side, this is called the present discounted value of consumption. And this term on the right hand side is called the present discounted value of income. So it is nothing but C0 plus C1 upon 1 plus R plus C2 upon 1 plus R square, plus we will extend it to C capital T upon 1 plus R to the power capital T. This is the present discounted value of consumption. Similarly, Y0 plus Y1 upon 1 plus R plus Y2 upon 1 plus R square, plus we can extend it to Y capital T upon 1 plus R to the power capital T. This is the present discounted value of income. The model assumes that the individual is expected to live until time period capital T. So every individual is born at time period 0. Every individual is born at time period 0 and is expected to live until the time period capital T. Also, all students, you can observe that this constraint is at the equality. Why is it at the equality? Because the assumption is that the person, so if the person receives an inheritance, he passes on a bequest of an equal amount. That means, guys, the model is implicitly assuming that whatever you inherit, you will be exactly passing on the same amount to the future generation. That means ideally you are consuming only from your lifetime income. I repeat, you are consuming only from the income you earn in your life. You are not consuming from the inheritance. if there was a possibility of consuming from the inheritance, present discounted value of consumption would have been more than the present discounted value of income. But the underlying assumption in this model is that whatever a person inherits, he passes on the bequest of the same amount for the coming generation. That means his present discounted value of consumption will exactly be equal to the present discounted value of the income he is expected to earn throughout his life. But had the possibility of inheritance been there, suppose a person was getting the inheritance but not passing it on as bequest, that means suppose he was also consuming from his inheritance, in that case the present discounted value of consumption would exceed the present discounted value of income. So I hope students have understood the model till now. Till now we have the utility function, which you can see on your screens. Utility is a function of C0 C1 dot 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 C capital T, and the constraint which is given to us, the budget constraint, is that present discounted value of consumption over the T period framework exactly equals the present discounted value of income. Okay, so now guys, we specifically dig deeper into the 2-period framework. So the equations above were in general for T. Now specifically we focus on 2 periods. Suppose individual has only 2 periods in his life, and in period 0 the consumer earns an income of Y0. In period 1 the consumer earns an income of Y1. It is exactly similar to it's identical to the model which we have done in intertemporal choice lectures of intermediate microeconomics. So guys, in this case, the utility function of this individual will be u as a function of C0 comma C1, because we only have 2 time periods, period 0 and period 1. C0 is consumption in period 0, C1 is consumption in period 1. And the income is Y0 and Y1 respectively. Okay, now you can see on the screen that if we talk about the budget constraint, you can see that the budget constraint of the individual now is given by, in the 2-period framework, present discounted value of consumption exactly equals the present discounted value of income. That means in the 2-period framework, the present discounted value of consumption is C0 plus C1 upon 1 plus R. Present discounted value of income is Y0 plus Y1 upon 1 plus R. Clearly, the present discounted value of consumption is exactly equal to the present discounted value of income. Okay, now all of you can look at the diagram, see how we have plotted the budget constraint in the diagram. So you can clearly see dollars in period 0 on the horizontal axis, dollars in period 1 on the vertical axis. Okay, that means guys, on the horizontal axis basically we are measuring C0, and on the vertical axis we are measuring C1. Now all of us know how to find the horizontal and the vertical intercepts. So to find the horizontal intercept in this equation, you put C1 as 0. So this implies your C0 is Y0 plus Y1 upon 1 plus R. So you can see this is your horizontal intercept. It shows the maximum consumption you can have in period 0. Guys, R denotes the rate of interest. So you should not be confused with this. R denotes the rate of interest, which allows for the possibility of borrowing and lending. Okay, and how do we find the vertical intercept? You all know this. Put C2 as 0 in this expression. put C2 as 0 in this, put C1 as 0. Let me clear this. Put C0 as 0. If we need to find the vertical intercept, you put C0 as 0 in this equation. You get C1 as Y1 plus Y0 into 1 plus R. So horizontal intercept is found by putting C1 equal to 0. Vertical intercept is found by putting C0 equal to 0. Now using that, we have found the horizontal and the vertical intercept. Horizontal intercept gives us the maximum consumption the individual can enjoy in period 0. Vertical intercept gives us the maximum consumption the individual can enjoy in period 1. You can look at point 1. Point 1 is your endowment. Point A. This is our endowment. Recall in intermediate microeconomics, we used to denote endowment by omega. Students who have taken intermediate microeconomics with me, you can recall omega denotes the endowment, and the consumer is endowed with Y0 income in period 0, Y1 income in period 1. So point A denotes the endowment. Now guys, if I calculate the slope of this budget line, in general the slope is dy by dx. In this case it's dc1 by dc0. If I differentiate the budget constraint with respect to c0, you will get your slope as -1 plus r. That means guys, the slope of the budget line or the budget constraint is -1 plus r. What does the slope capture? If the individual gives up $1 worth of consumption in period 0, he can enjoy 1 plus r dollars of consumption in period 1. Let me again interpret the slope for you. The slope, which is -1 plus r, indicates that if the individual gives up $1 of consumption in period 0, he can enjoy 1 plus r dollars of consumption in period 1. Okay, so this is our interpretation of the slope. Now we can quickly look at the explanation. The explanation is pretty much what I just spoke. So if we quickly look at it, point A, you can see in the above diagram, point A shows the amount of income that the individual will earn in period 0, that is Y0, and income Y1. We assume that individual can either borrow or lend money at the rate of interest R. So R is the rate of interest. Then all of us know the concept of net borrower and net saver. We have done this in intermediate microeconomics also. If his income in period 0 is greater than the value of goods and services he wants to consume in that period, then he can spend his unspent income, he can lend his unspent income. That means guys, the whole sentence is telling you, if income in period 0 is more than the consumption in period 0, the individual is a net saver. And the savings is denoted by S0, which is equal to Y0 minus C0. So if your income in period 0 exceeds your consumption, that means you are a net saver. Guys, the opposite will happen. If the income in period 0 is less than the consumption in period 0, this implies the individual is a net borrower in period 1. Okay, so I hope students have understood this. Anyways, you should be knowing this concept by now after having done the basic intertemporal model in intermediate microeconomics. Okay, so this is the money lent in period 0. Obviously, the money which is saved by the individual is the money which is lent out. Savings are lent out, right? So The individual savings in period 0 are Y0 minus C0, which is lent out in period 0. Now, when you lent out money in period 1, what will you receive? In period 1, you will receive your savings plus the interest on those savings. So you can see this line, by lending this amount, he will receive in period 1 an amount equal to S0 into 1 plus R. That means, guys, when we are saving in period 0, in period 1, we will receive back our savings plus the interest on those savings. So that his consumption in period 1 can exceed his income by that amount. Now, since you have saved in period 1, since you have saved in period 0, you can enjoy your consumption in period 1 more than your income. I hope students have understood the statement I have made. Since you have saved your income in period 0, it allows you to enjoy consumption over and above your income in period 1. That means, guys, another way of saying it is that since you are saving in period 0, you are dis-saving in period 1. That means your savings in period 1 are negative. What is your savings in period 1? Savings in period 1 is income in period 1 minus consumption in period 1. And what is Y1 minus C1? We just saw what is C1 minus Y1. Okay, we just saw this right now. We can look at the above equation. Let's go back to the above equation. So guys, Y0 minus C0 is S0. Okay, so this much is what we are lending in period 0. That means, guys, my Y1 minus C1, another way of saying it is I can write it like this. My C1, what will my C1 be? The consumption in period 1 will exactly be equal to my income in period 1 plus the savings and the interest I will get from period 0. So I can write plus 1 plus R times S0. Since I am saving in period 0, consumption in period 1 will be income in period 1 plus the savings and the interest I get on it from period 0. So this implies I can write Y1 minus C1 will be minus 1 plus R times S0. And that is this equation. Y1 minus C1 is minus 1 plus R times S0. Clear? So you can clearly see that this savings in period 1 is of the opposite sign. This savings in period 1 is of the opposite sign as compared to savings in period 0. Why? Because if your savings in period 0 are positive, automatically savings in period 1 will be negative. That means if you are consuming less than your income in period 1, you will be if you are consuming less than your income in period 0, you will be consuming more than your income in period 1. So that is what is meant by this sentence. If you are consuming, I am repeating it once again, if you are consuming less than your income in period 1, that means if C0 is less than Y0, automatically it implies that C1 will be greater than Y1. That means if savings is positive, if S0 is positive, automatically it implies that S1 is negative. If you are saving in period 0, you are dis-saving in period 1. Okay, so let's move forward. So guys, I can write the equation between period 1 and period 0. So guys, my S1 by S0. What will S1 by S0 be? S1 itself is minus S0 into 1 plus R upon S0, which itself is nothing but Y1 minus C1 upon Y0 minus C0. So if you rearrange the terms, you can see, I hope students have understood. S1 is nothing but minus S0 into 1 plus R. S0 is written as it is. Minus S0 into 1 plus R is Y1 minus C1. Now if I solve this equation, let's solve this equation now. So what are we solving? We are solving this equation. So you can see that S0 and S0 cancel out. So I can write Y1 minus C1 is minus 1 plus R into Y0 minus C0. So this is another way in which I can write the budget constraint. One way in which we had written the budget constraint was that present discounted value of consumption exactly equals the present discounted value of income. But on your screen, you can see we have now written the budget constraint in terms of the future value. So let's look at the interpretation of this. The above equation tells us that by reducing consumption in period 0 below the income by the amount S0, the consumer can enjoy in period 1 consumption C1 in excess of income Y1. That is C1 minus Y1 is 1 plus R times S0. In other words, the consumer can trade from Y0 Y1 income point, which is the endowment, to C0 C1 consumption point along the budget line, which has a slope of minus 1 plus R. So guys, the whole interpretation is what I had already discussed when we were discussing the diagram. It's nothing new. All what it's telling us is that if the consumer consumes less than his income in period 0, that means if he is saving in period 0, this saving will allow the consumer to enjoy in period 1 consumption above the income. By how much amount? By this much amount. And the slope of the budget line will be minus 1 plus R. So I hope all students are clear with this. So from the above diagram, now guys, this paragraph is clear. The maximum amount, this paragraph is pretty much clear. Maximum amount the consumer can consume in period 0 is this much. We have calculated it. Maximum amount that the consumer can consume in period 1 is this much. So this is my vertical intercept and this is my horizontal intercept. Now comes the individual's preferences. Now individual's preferences are captured by the utility function. So I can say utility is a function of C0 comma C1. Now we have done the concept of indifference curves before. So in this case, the indifference curve will show combinations of C0 and C1. That means consumption in time period 0 and 1, which gives the consumer the same level of satisfaction. And obviously higher indifference curve will represent higher level of satisfaction. So if I move forward, you can see on your screen that we have drawn in a 2-period framework both the budget constraint as well as the indifference curve. Okay, so you can see that this is my budget line in the diagram. You can see 3 indifference curves, U0, U1 and U2. And you can clearly see that equilibrium happens at the point of tangency. It's an interior solution where the slope of the indifference curve exactly equals the slope of the budget line. That means the slope of the indifference curve, which is MRS, so at the point of tangency, at the point of tangency, MRS is exactly equal to the slope of the budget line, which is minus 1 plus R. Okay, so, or I can say in absolute terms, I can either write this or I can write mod of MRS is equal to 1 plus R. Both are correct. We can take the absolute value of MRS and it's exactly equal to 1 plus R. Okay, so equilibrium happens at point B. Point B is the point of equilibrium. You can clearly see that the consumer is a net borrower in period 1. Consumer is a net borrower in period 0 because he is consuming in period 0 more than his income. Since consumption in period 0 is more than the income, the consumer is a net borrower in period 0. Okay, so hoping that students have understood this. We can quickly look at the diagram now. Let us see the diagram. So now guys, since the consumer is a net borrower in period 0, since he is a net borrower in period 0, he will pay in period 1. How much amount will he pay? The principal plus the interest on it. So 1 plus R times C0 minus Y0. If you are a net saver in period 0, it will allow you to have consumption over your income in period 1. But if you are a net borrower in period 0, then obviously your consumption will be less than your income. So Y1 minus C1 in this case is positive. Since you are consuming more than your income in period 0, hence in period 1, your consumption will be less than your income because you also have to pay back what you have borrowed plus the interest on it. Now guys, all of you recall what happens if endowment goes up. So suppose you can clearly see that point A in this picture depicts the endowment. Point A is our endowment. It's nothing but comprises of Y0 and Y1. Now let's look at the impact of an increase in Y0 or Y1. So if the consumer's income increases in any period, be it period 0 or period 1, if the consumer's income increases in period 0 or period 1, the present value of his income will increase since point A will either shift horizontally to the right or it will shift vertically upwards. Now guys, we can come back to the diagram. You can see in the diagram, suppose for clarity, let me erase everything so that students are clear. Let's come back to the diagram. Now you can clearly see that currently the endowment is at point A. When Y0 goes up, suppose Y0 goes up. So if Y0 goes up, it implies budget line shifts horizontally to the right. Correct? If my Y0 goes up, for the same Y1, if my Y0 goes up, budget line will shift horizontally to the right. Okay, and for the same Y0, if Y1 goes up, it implies budget line will shift vertically upwards. Budget line will shift vertically upwards. So what do we learn? An increase in Y0 or Y1 will cause the budget line to shift. An increase in Y0 will cause budget line to shift horizontally to the right. An increase in Y1 will cause budget line to shift vertically upwards. Okay, so you can clearly see impact of an increase in Y0 comma Y1. So let's read up this line, which you can see on your screen. Thus, an increase in current or expected income. Today we are in period 0. Tomorrow we have period 1. So we don't know the actual income tomorrow. We only know the expected income tomorrow. So an increase in the current or expected income will shift the budget line up parallel to the old budget line. And since the budget line will shift to the right or upwards, in both the cases, it makes it possible for the consumer to reach a new higher level of utility. So obviously we know if the endowment goes up, it causes the budget line to shift to the right because the value of the endowment goes up, which makes it possible for the consumer to consume on a higher indifference curve and be better off than before. Okay, so all of you know this from the basic lectures of intermediate microeconomics. Okay, it's just kind of a revision today. So if the consumption in any period is not an inferior good, assuming that consumption in both the periods are normal goods, whenever any period's income goes up, consumption in all periods go up. This is a very important point. So guys, understand this. Suppose consumption today and consumption tomorrow both are normal goods. If your actual income today goes up or your expected income Y1 goes up, in either of the cases, consumption in both the periods will go up. So we are trying to point out an increase in today's income Y0 or the future income Y1 implies consumption in both the periods C0, C1 both will go up. So I can write it like this: C0 and C1 both will go up. C0 and C1 both will go up. That means, guys, if Y0 goes up, then also C0, C1 both will go up. Or if Y1 goes up, then also C0, C1 both will go up. So what do we learn? From point A, we get another implication, which is point B. Current period consumption will vary less than does income. That means this point is trying to tell us that increase in the current consumption or increase in Y0 will always be greater than increase in C0. Why? Because increase in Y0 will be equal to increase in C0 plus the increase in C1. When Y0 goes up, C0 will also go up, C1 will also go up. That means I can say that increase in Y0 is greater than increase in C0. Same thing I can say in terms of Y1 and C1 also. Similarly, increase in Y1 will be greater than increase in C1 because increase in Y1 will be equal to increase in C0 plus increase in C1. So I can make the same logic. I can say similarly, so I'm erasing it off, and I can say that increase in Y1 is greater than increase in C1. Why? Because increase in Y1 is increase in C0 plus increase in C1. So that means in any period, increase in consumption will always be less than the increase in income. So guys, from this two-period model, we can build the relationship between what? We can build the relationship between consumption and present value of income. So I can say that consumption in period T is a function of the present value of income in period T. Guys, in our model, what is the present value of income? In our 2-period model, the present value of income is y0 plus y1 upon 1 plus r. This is for 2-period model when we only have 2 periods. So consumption in any period is a function of present value of income. The sign of the derivative f dash is positive. That means if the present value of income goes up, now present value of income can go up either because of an increase in y0 or because of an increase in y1. An increase in y0 or an increase in y1 will cause the present value of income to go up. And consumption is an increasing function of the present value of income. Now, guys, this was for 2 periods. In general, for t periods, the present value of income will be summation yt upon 1 plus r to the power t. In general, for t periods, PVT will be summation yt upon 1 plus r to the power t. This is for t periods. Or I can say as t goes on from 0 to capital T. So this is for capital T periods. Okay, so my PVT will be summation as small t goes from 0 to capital T, yt upon 1 plus r to the power t. So we can say this says that an individual's consumption in time period t is an increasing function. That is why f dash is positive. It's an increasing function of the present value of his income in time t. Whole point is trying to summarize that if your present value of income goes up, consumption in all the periods will go up. So that means, suppose I take an example of only 2 periods, an increase in y0 or an increase in y1 will cause the present value to go up. And if present value goes up, both C0 and C1 will go up. We can't say that only one will go up, both will go up. So an increase in the present value will increase the consumption in all the periods. So we can say consumption is an increasing function of the present value of income. So guys, this is where I intend to stop in today's lecture. What we have primarily covered in this lecture is the simple model of intertemporal choice in a 2-period framework, which we have also covered in intermediate micro lectures on intertemporal choice. Okay, so I hope all students have enjoyed the lecture today. The access to the lecture note has anyways been given to all of you, so you can start studying it. In the next lecture, we will be discussing about the intertemporal model of optimizing consumption. So basically, in the next lecture, we'll talk about how the consumer will optimize the consumption over all the t periods. Okay, so this is where I stop in this lecture. We will continue in the third lecture from this particular topic, intertemporal model of optimizing consumption. So I hope all students have enjoyed the lecture. Any doubt, you can unmute your mic and ask, or call up or mail me your doubts at divineschoolofeconomics@gmail.com. So this is where I stop.